So let's talk about the first step, scenario planning. Now there's some steps within there, some sub-steps if you will. To do scenario planning, you need to review documentation that helps define your exchange. You need to conduct stakeholder interviews so you know what's going to be exchanged. You need to assess IEPD complexity so that you know how much you have to throw at it in terms of resources. And you need to create business scenarios that help define your exchange. Your first step is reviewing documentation, and it's really important. You want to review all the available documentation so that you can understand a lot of different things. You can understand the current technical architecture of all the exchange partners. What can partners in this exchange do? You don't want to try to make them do something they can't. It'll help you find out which stakeholders will be involved in the exchange. Who are the stakeholders and what do they know? It'll help you decide security and privacy concerns related to the exchange. This is particularly important in the children, youth, and family services community, where there are really, truly a lot of different interlocking privacy and security concerns that have to be taken into account. So reviewing documentation will give you that first start of getting your hands around the problem, understanding what the exchange is all about, and understanding who's involved and what they're able to do. Reviewing documentation will also give you the first cut at what are the technical characteristics of the exchange. In other words, what kind of data is being shared? How many different data objects are there? How is that data currently structured? And whether you're using any external standards that need to be taken into account and used within the context of the NIEM. All of these things are things you can find out by looking at the existing documentation. Next, you want to identify stakeholders. Who are the people who have a stake in this exchange? That would include organizations with whom you're sharing the information, domain stewards and other NIEM stakeholders who might be able to give you initial guidance, NIEM practitioners from within your organization, or if you don't have any, NIEM practitioners that might be available for you to draw upon in the broader community. You'll need to have business experts, but you also need to have technical experts. There's really two sides to this, and you need to talk to both of those sides. You can't do these exchanges just by talking to business experts because they're not going to understand the NIEM and XML. You can't do it by just talking to geeks with their XML because they may not understand some of the business aspects. You really need to talk to both. Assessing the complexity of your IEPD is an important initial step as well. Differences in your complexity matter. They'll have an effect on the resources required to develop the IEPD. A low complexity IEPD is obviously going to require fewer resources than a high complexity IEPD. It'll also assist in determining which IEPD artifacts need to be developed as part of the project and which ones you can maybe just reuse from other sources. So you want to take a look up front so that you know just how much you have to throw at it in terms of resources. Factors that lead to a low IEPD complexity include things like existing exchange. Is it an existing exchange? I mean, if there's already an exchange, then a lot of the documentation is going to be available about what the pieces are, and they might even be formatted well. Is information available about the exchange? Can you find lots of diagrams that tell you exactly what goes into it, or other sorts of documentation? If so, then that helps lower the complexity. Is it a relatively simple exchange with a minimal number of data objects that are already well structured in a way that works well in XML? If so, then you're going to have a lower level of complexity in making your IEPD. And finally, is it using some external standard that's already NIEM conformant, meaning parts of it are pretty much already done, already conformant with the NIEM? If that's true, then again, you have a low complexity IEPD, and it won't take as many resources to be able to handle it. The flip side is a high complexity IEPD. For example, if it's a brand new exchange and you don't really have previous work to draw upon, well, that increases the complexity. If there's a minimum documentation available about it, again, that increases the complexity. That means you got to create a lot of that stuff and you don't have any guidance. Is it relatively complex, the exchange itself? Is there a large number of data objects? Are they not well structured? Is it a big giant flat list of elements that you're going to have to put into a structure? Again, that makes IEPD development a lot more complex. And does it utilize external standards that aren't NIEM conformant? That's also something that raises the complexity level of your IEPD. It means you got to figure out more stuff in order to get it to work. And that means you're going to need more resources. After doing this initial analysis of your exchange, it's time to start figuring out the actual pieces. What actual things are going to be in the exchange? Creating business scenarios by using different technical diagrams and business diagrams is a nice way to do this. Diagrams assist with the process by providing business context around the exchange, and that helps determine what needs to be in it and what are the different restrictions that there might be on various chunks of data in it. Remember that making an IEPD is not just a technical endeavor. The business rules that surround the exchange are just as important as the chunks of data that are in the exchange. And so business diagrams help determine what those are. Business and technical diagrams are very useful in determining what the requirements of the exchange are. Use case diagrams show you how the different pieces fit together. Business process diagrams give you the context in which the exchange lives. Sequence diagrams show how different things fit together in time. And these are all useful in determining what the requirements of the exchange are going to be. They're also all artifacts that then end up in your IEPD.